Have you ever noticed how threatened a narcissist looks when you finally stop reacting to their games? It's almost as if your silence, your peace, and your healing cut deeper than any argument ever could. That's because healing is proof that their power over you has ended. The moment you begin to reclaim yourself, the mask they've worn so carefully starts to slip. They thrive when you're broken, confused, and dependent. But the second you begin to see clearly, they feel exposed. This isn't just about relationships. It's about psychology. Carl Jung once said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Narcissists operate in the shadows of your unconscious pain. They know how to exploit wounds you haven't yet faced. But healing, true healing, is about making the unconscious conscious. It's about shining light into the dark places where their control once lived. And that light, your awareness, terrifies them. Because once you see, you can't unsee. And once you wake up, you're no longer a willing participant in their illusion. Think about this for a moment. Why do narcissists invest so much energy in keeping you insecure? It's because insecurity keeps you hooked. They criticize, they manipulate, they subtly undermine you, not because they truly believe you're worthless, but because they fear the day you recognize your worth. Healing interrupts this cycle. Imagine someone who has spent years telling you that you're nothing without them. Now imagine you no longer believe it. That shift, that quiet defiance, shakes their entire world. Jung spoke often about individuation, the process of becoming whole, of separating your true self from the false identities imposed by others. When you heal, you begin that process. You peel away the layers of lies and return to who you really are. Narcissists hate this because their control depends on keeping you identified with the false self they constructed for you. The moment you reject that false self, you shatter the foundation of their power. And in that moment, the balance of power is reversed. They're the ones scrambling to maintain control while you finally breathe freely. But here's the real problem. Healing doesn't happen quietly. It changes your energy. People can feel it, and narcissists sense it instantly. When you no longer respond to their provocations, they feel powerless. When you start saying no without guilt, they feel abandoned. Jung believed that every person has a shadow, the hidden aspects of our personality that we deny or suppress. Narcissists project their shadow onto others, blaming you for the very flaws they refuse to acknowledge in themselves. But when you start healing, you stop carrying their shadow for them. You stop accepting blame for things that were never yours to hold. For example, if they call you selfish every time you express a need, healing helps you realize that their accusation reflects their own selfishness, not yours. That awareness breaks the spell. You're no longer trapped in their projections, and they're left face to face with their own shadow. And for a narcissist, that's terrifying, because the one thing they can't handle is self-awareness. Think about how often people avoid silence. We scroll, we overwork, we fill our days with noise just so we don't have to face what's really inside. Narcissists take advantage of this avoidance. They fill your silence with their voice, their criticism, their endless demands. But healing requires you to stop running. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." That awakening happens when you sit with yourself long enough to realize, I don't need their approval to exist. Healing isn't glamorous. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's messy. But it's also the most courageous act of freedom. When you begin to sit in that silence, you cut the strings they once used to control you. And here's the twist. When you no longer need their validation, they panic. Their entire identity depends on being the center of your world. The day you begin to look inward instead of outward for answers, you pull the rug out from under them. That's why your healing feels like betrayal to them. Because it reveals the truth. They were never as powerful as they wanted you to believe. You've probably seen this play out in real life. Imagine you stop arguing with someone who thrives on conflict. At first, they escalate, louder, angrier, more desperate. But when you don't react, they suddenly look smaller, almost powerless. That's what healing does in a relationship with a narcissist. It starves them of the reaction they crave. Jung explained that the ego resists anything that threatens its dominance. A narcissist's ego is fragile, built on illusions of superiority. When you begin to heal, you stop feeding those illusions. You stop accepting their version of reality. Instead, you create your own. For example, when you start setting boundaries, saying, "I won't discuss this right now," you disrupt their cycle of control. They may accuse you of being cold or uncaring, but what they're really feeling is fear. Fear that their grip on you is slipping. Fear that their control is dying. And make no mistake, for a narcissist, your healing feels like death to the ego they work so hard to inflate. Here's something most people don't realize. Narcissists don't just hate your healing because it frees you. They hate it because it exposes them. As long as you're broken, they can blame you. But when you heal, when you start living with clarity and self-respect, the cracks in the facade become impossible to ignore. Jung said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Narcissists spend their entire lives avoiding that truth. They can't bear to face who they really are, so they create elaborate masks. But when you heal, you stop playing along. You stop reinforcing the illusion. And suddenly, they're confronted with the reality they've been running from all along. Think about a toxic workplace. The moment one employee refuses to be scapegoated, the boss who built power on manipulation starts to lose credibility. That's what happens in relationships, too. Your healing shines a light on their dysfunction, and that light spreads. Others begin to see what you see. And for a narcissist, exposure is the ultimate threat. But here's the most empowering truth. Healing is not about them at all. It's about you. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you abandoned just to survive. Jung believed that wholeness comes when we integrate the shadow, when we face the pain we've avoided and learn from it. Healing means you no longer reject yourself to keep someone else comfortable. It means you start choosing yourself, even when it disappoints others. And yes, narcissists will hate this. They'll call you selfish, cold, ungrateful. But remember this, the parts of you they fear are the parts of you that are free. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you're rewriting your story. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, you're dismantling their illusion. Healing doesn't mean you'll never feel pain again. It means you finally trust yourself enough to face it without being destroyed by it. And that trust, that quiet strength, is something no narcissist can ever take away from you. And your story is only just beginning to here's the truth. Healing is not revenge. It's not about showing a narcissist how strong you become. It's about quietly reclaiming your life, your mind, and your soul. They may hate it. They may resist it. They may even try harder to pull you back into their world. But their hatred is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to awaken, to grow, and to finally live free from the illusions that once held you captive. Carl Jung believed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and your healing is proof that this journey is possible. Every step you take toward wholeness, no matter how small, is a step away from their control, and a step closer to the life you were meant to live. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to keep walking this path with me. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos on healing, Jung's philosophy, and breaking free from the cycles that keep you trapped, because your healing matters.